The Holcim Foundation Awards is proud to partner with The Urbanist on Monocle Radio. The Holcim Foundation Awards is the world's premier competition for sustainable design, highlighting projects that contribute to the transformation of the building sector. Awarding $1 million in prizes, it honours excellence in sustainable design and construction. By showcasing innovative, soon-to-be-realised projects, the awards drive change and inspire a new generation to adopt responsible design practices. To mark the opening of free entry for the 2025 edition, the Urbanist team, led by Andrew Tuck, will bring you a very special episode of the show, where Andrew sits down with the innovators and inspirational leaders behind landmark projects in sustainable architecture and design. To find out how the Holcim Foundation supports such benchmarks of excellence in sustainable development, and to learn more about the Holcim Foundation Awards, head to holcimfoundation.org now. The Holcim Foundation Awards, proud partner of The Urbanist on Monocle Radio.
Welcome to the second in a special series of Tall Stories, brought to you by the Holcim Foundation Awards, the world's premier competition for sustainable design, highlighting projects that contribute to the transformation of the building sector. I'm your host, Andrew Tuck. In each episode, we welcome one of the jury chairs to explore their views on creating uplifting places, fostering a healthy planet, developing viable economics, and building thriving communities. We ask them how their careers began, the pillars of their practice, and what their hopes are for the future of the industry. This week, we speak with the Lebanese-born architect and founding principal of her eponymous practice, Lina Ghotmeh.
You know, I grew up in Beirut. I was born in the 80s. Beirut during that time was finishing up actually a period of war and recovering from it. And growing up in such a city, architecture meant a lot for me. It meant a possibility of healing a landscape, a possibility of bringing people together. So growing in a city that is almost like an open section, I was drawn to that landscape that was in ruins and thinking, how can we build? What tool do I have as a human being to allow beauty to be brought back in a landscape? So basically, I was interested in architecture. I was very sensitive in drawing. I spent a lot of my time actually in childhood drawing. And at the same time, I was interested in archaeology because the city of Beirut and Lebanon has been part of a long civilization. We find traces of Phoenicians, of Ottomans, of Romans, and every time you dig in, you find again another archaeology. So it's also a field that was interesting for me. So bringing both together, somehow I came to become an architect who's very interested in traces of the past, of civilization, and of the complexity of our culture as human beings. Since my school years, I always felt like architecture is a research-driven practice. When I graduated, I worked for 2 years in big offices, but then I was always very interested in how can this specific experience that I lived in my country be transformed into a positive impact on our urban and built landscape. At that time, I found a competition for the Estonian National Museum that I joined with two colleagues of mine, and we won that project, which was building the National Museum in Tartu, and it's a 40,000 square meters project. It's an amazing opportunity, to build a building that talks about the history of that nation in Estonia that had lived also the occupation until 91. It was part of the Soviet Union. And the museum for them was a way also to get vocal on their own identity, look back into their history and talk about an architecture that is an incubator for culture and for constantly making culture. So that was the opportunity really to open my own practice. And I found myself enriching the practice from research and creating this atelier of thoughts and of looking thoroughly at the environment of every project we have. There is a sense of memory that is constantly present in our work, in the work of my atelier, and every building that emerges. There is a sense that this building had been there, but it's completely new as well. So this kind of connection that one can draw between the built space and between the human emotions and human memory. And that is born a sense of humanism as well. So I always perceive architecture as a continuity of our bodies, of ourselves as social and human beings and material beings. And in that sense, architecture, or the way it emerges from my practice, there is a sense of strength, but also a lot of humility, trying to really be just in the way we produce architecture. So it does really measure, also how much it impacts the environment, how it could be positive on the environment, both socially and architecturally, environmentally speaking. We see the sustainability not only about numbers, that the building should behave accordingly. Like, it's not about, how much consumption only a building is able to reduce on, but it's about really the durability of a building, its possibility of having a positive impact on its environment, both in terms of the use of materials, its carbon footprint, the way it produces its energy, but also in the way it's inhabited, the positive experience that it can offer to people. Like recently, one of the buildings that we delivered was the first low carbon energy positive building in France, which is dedicated for a manufacturing facility. So the idea here was how to change also the architecture, the aesthetics of industrial facilities, and bring beauty back into those facilities, and allow a complete synergy with nature, with the environment, building again with bricks. And also thinking about construction and architecture as a mean of building knowledge. So while we're building, we're actually also allowing knowledge to be perpetuated, whether it's about the knowledge of brick making or the knowledge of an artisan and the knowledge of our ancestors. So this kind of compression of knowledge and know-how, architecture become like an enabler in a way. The more we move forward with our industry, the more we have to bring in and embrace complexity, because we are faced with global climate challenges, we're faced with destruction in some parts of the world, we're faced with the fast-growing economies, and we're always bringing on that complexity. And I think more and more our capacity of being able to orchestrate those complexities and allowing an architecture of positivity, and that can be a synthesis of what is our world today, would be really great. And I really hope also that will be more architecture and more places to bring people together.
Tall Stories is a Monocle production from the team behind The Urbanist. This episode was brought to you by the Holcim Foundation Awards. For more information, visit holcimfoundation.org. I'm Andrew Tuck. Goodbye, and thank you for listening, City Lovers.